having left Africa, having left Kenya, it exposes you to more opportunities that you would actually use to be able to help back home the way that you envision, because that is your ultimate, that's your ultimate desire, to give back to the community where you were born.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the ultimate. The ultimate thing is really to be able to say what is your mission, how are you visioning the future, and how can you be able to achieve that? What are the value systems that you are building to actually achieve that? Would you agree with that? Would you see that perspective?
Yeah, the values play a very big role. It plays a very big role.
Right, right.
Because that's what informs the decision you make, and where you go. So I would agree with you.
What point in your career did you realize that they were kind of transformative in terms of listen, I could be doing something else rather than doing the rat race of the corporate world?
Let me say I was actually forced into it. My son was going to class 7, that is in the Dutch system, and he started struggling a lot in school. And by then, see, the traveling corporate world meant I'm home maybe in a month for 2 weeks. And the father had taken a lecturing job so that he can stay longer with him. But as a mother, I felt I have a bigger role to help him than the father. So I really started looking at how do I stop the corporate world and just get a job. I wasn't even thinking about self-employment. I just thought I get a job that is much more relaxing. And I became a lecturer at Windesheim Honors College for 3 years. And I took a job for 80%, whereby I was just in school only 3 days, 1 day working at home, and the rest of the time being with my son. So after being a lecturer for 3 years, and because of, see, when I was working, at the same time I was studying, taking masters, and at the same time I was leading these massive movements of women in different continents. I was working 24/7, and by the time I went in to be a lecturer, my body was tired. So by the time I was a lecturer for 3 years, I actually went on a burnout. And that burnout was a turning point for me. Then I had to reconsider what really matters for me. And that's when I started realizing I would want to have a fulfilling life, and a life that has impact that I can see. Sometimes as a lecturer, I didn't see, and going back to the corporate wasn't a choice for me again. So by then we moved to Luxembourg with my husband. He was working, I was at home resting for quite some time actually. And that's the time I finished writing my memoir, and that's the time I started my coaching business. And it has been a learning job and learning process of how to be a kind of coach that impacts lives, not an executive coach like how I was doing it in the corporate world, where you coach leaders one-on-one, but I got into group coaching. And I started, first of all, as a volunteer, by the way. You know, that's
which company? Were you offering services in a particular company, or you were?
I started in a church for free. For free.
I see.
For free, and it had so much impact. I decided I can do a business with this. Yeah, I started.
You know, sometimes you need just to stop to understand what you really like and what you would like to do.
Absolutely. I started it for free and then realized that it was really fulfilling me, and that's what I wanted to do for life. And know that it was not only coaching. I've been a consultant, development consultant, of course, because, you know, my whole life was about development and women's rights, peace. So I was still a consultant, but that didn't fulfill me as much as coaching. So I still do consultancy, but my heart's love is coaching.
What is the major difference then within consultancy and coaching? How would you sort of bring that kind of differentiation? And your choice then being coaching, executive coaching. What is the kind of differences that you find in the marketplace between both?
In consultancy, you're not readily, I didn't readily get businesses. Of course, even though if you're a very good consultant, you get businesses. But in consultancy, it meant I would only go to where my skills are, which is development. I'm in Europe. The development is in developing world.
Mm.
So the number of consultancies that were open for me here in Europe were fewer, first of all. Secondly, because there were fewer, there was a very high competition. The few consultancies that I got, then it was such a laborious thing because let's say even if I got a consultancy here, it means I go to work in Africa or Asia. Okay, let's say I go to Sri Lanka, then I have to rely on the people in Sri Lanka. You're going there like for let's say you're going for 6 weeks.
Right.
Rely on those people. And in the end, what you find out, you have to trust that those people told you the truth because it's a completely different context, you know?
All right.
So whatever recommendations you give, you don't even have any control to know whether they are going to take them seriously or not. So in the end, the impact still, for me, it takes more for me to see the impact there and to be able to have an assurance that what I'm giving is really useful for them, depending on the time frame of our interactions. And the fact that you deal with people from different culture and different context, with different needs, which you might not even be able to perceive, you have to rely on other people, which most of the times you don't know whether their skills are also at the level you want. So those are things you work with. So I find it more demanding. It's very fulfilling if you really get right match here, right match there. Give recommendations. I have done that, and then they take on the recommendations, and then you go there after 5 years, you find your recommendations have been implemented, and it is wow, but it is one, if I look at the projects I've done, maybe 2 projects have been like that, maybe 3 that have gone back after years, and I'm just like, whoa, it actually worked. They really actually took me seriously. But coaching is about personal lives. And people come to you because they want help. And in coaching, you use a framework which has been proven over and over again that it works. So most of the time, 98%, I can say it's 98% successful. It's completely different.
Do you believe it's such difference because like in business, you just need to control more of if your advices are being implemented, and in personal life, it's more about like trusting.
Yes.
That people trust you.
Yes. But the kind of consultancy I do is with development. It's really about different contexts. And also trust comes in very high. Trust also plays a big role. It's just not not just your instruments, what you're using, your tools.
So what is about this personal consultancy? Is that about more about like career, or is that like more personal consultancy? About the lifestyle?
It's about, let's say, you get an assignment to go and do an evaluation of a project. Let's say there was a project which was funded to implement something. Then you get a consultancy to go and evaluate whether they have implemented the goals they set to do. That kind of consultancy is the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, because I describe consultancy as prescriptive and coaching as descriptive. It kind of like goes to what Yulia just said. It's a question of okay, well, consultancy, this is a prescription of what is.
Yes.
Or what should be in terms of what is.
What should be, yes.
Yeah, what should be in terms of what is. And coaching, of course, is descriptive. This is what should be.
Yes.
Because this is where you're coming from.
Yes.
in some ways, yeah. And so in writing Invisible No More,
Yes.
How did the experiences that you've had during the 5 years you said you had depression, how did that translate into your writings?
Yes. So Invisible No More, I tell shortly about my story of how I found myself in depression. And then I start with my process of getting out of the depression. So like in the first chapter, I write about how I came out of denial, and I talk to people how to come out of denial. You know, like the first chapter is about reality check. So I tell you my story about how I was in depression, and then this is really a workbook, like how do you get reality check? So chapter 1 is about reality check, and then I've written about the process I went to have a reality check and to get it, that my life was unmanageable and I needed to get some change. So in that sense, my life really, I have poured my life in this book because it is the process that I went through. And I believe that process is if anyone reads that book, if you go through that process, you will also get the same results. That's why I call it a workbook for anybody who wants any change actually in their life. You don't need to be depressed. Like when I went in, I just thought, well, actually when I went to get for help is because I had problems in my marriage. My marriage was falling apart. And it's only until we went for this help that I realized, whoa, I've been depressed for 5 years. Yes. Right. So all the different chapters are about the different processes that you go through to get out of depression, addiction, anything you want to change in your life. But it's informed by my process that I went through.
Yeah, before we came on, we're discussing, Yulia, we're discussing about addiction and how I think addiction in itself, because I watched some of your videos, you were mentioning, well, quite a whole lot of content you have on your website, and I will encourage everyone to check out on the website. We are going to plug the website and how you can actually get really good videos and good teachings on all of the subjects that have to deal with the book itself. But the question I have, right, for depression is, or for addiction is, do you think that the foundation of depression is addiction? Do you think that there is a foundational element of that?
I don't know I can really say depression. We have to be very careful not to minimize the fact that there are some people who are depressed because they have chemical imbalance. So let's put that aside, you know, right. Really people who get depressed because they have chemical imbalance. I think for me, if you have any addiction, it is an indication of something that is not going on in your life. It doesn't necessarily have to be depression, but it is what I call pain. You have some pain somewhere, emotional pain. And that pain, to control that pain, to numb, actually addiction, I believe addiction is to numb that pain. You get into doing different things. And what do I mean by pain? In my own case, because I was in depression and I didn't have any joy, any happiness, anything, I was very irritable. So every time I argued with somebody, if you argue with somebody, that you are left with a feeling, a bad feeling, that is the pain. So you can imagine I was a rolling ball of pains because I was forever quarreling at home. At work, I was forever having conflicts with colleagues. You know, at work, I had this, how can you call it, dysfunction of all the time carrying myself in some sort of superiority complex, you know. That shows there's something not okay with you in your soul inside, and that is the pain, and that is what I would not call it depression. I think for me, the mark of depression is sadness, lack of joy, and really, I could not see color. You can imagine how Netherlands is beautiful. I think really, Netherlands is the most beautiful country in the whole world. I've traveled everywhere, so I just don't say it as a cliche. I think it's really beautiful. I could not see that beauty because somehow when you're depressed, it's like it darkens your vision, it darkens your sight. But depression can cause that pain, you know, or that pain can cause depression. So, but for addiction is really to numb some pain somewhere, something that's not going well, and you don't know what to do with it.